Everywhere you look, the signs of financial strain are hard to ignore. Families are cutting back on groceries. Adults in their 30s are moving back in with parents. And record numbers of Americans admit they can't cover even a $400 emergency without borrowing. Wages aren't keeping pace with prices, debt is climbing higher, and the average household budget is stretched thinner than ever. Behind these headlines, though, a quieter trend has taken hold, one that looks harmless on the surface, but has the power to reshape personal finance in ways we haven't fully grasped. It's the rise of buy now, pay later. And while it's marketed as a modern solution to old money problems, its long-term effects may be far more dangerous than most people realize. Buy now, pay later, often shortened to BNPL, isn't complicated. It's the option you see at checkout, whether online or in a store, to split a purchase into smaller installments over a few weeks or months. No credit card required, no interest if you pay on time, just a few easy clicks and your payment is spread out. Companies like Klarna, Afterpay, and Affirm have built billion-dollar businesses around the idea that consumers want more flexibility and less friction when they spend. And for millions of Americans, this looks like a dream come true. Groceries, clothes, even electronics suddenly feel more affordable. Instead of walking away from a cart because the price is too high, you can walk out with everything and deal with the cost later. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That flexibility comes at a price, one that isn't always visible until it's too late. These services are engineered to encourage more spending, not less. By lowering the psychological barrier of a purchase, they make it easier for someone to say yes when they should probably say no. The math is simple. When you divide a $200 bill into 4 payments of $50, it doesn't feel like $200 anymore. It feels manageable. But when you make that choice over and over across different purchases, the small installments add up faster than people expect. Let's put this into perspective with a simple scenario. Imagine a young professional named David. He uses BNPL to buy a new pair of shoes for $120, splitting it into 4 $30 payments. A few days later, he orders takeout and uses BNPL again, another $40, split into 4 $10 installments. Next week, he upgrades his headphones for $200, again split into $50 chunks. In the moment, each transaction feels painless, just a small hit to his budget. But within a month, David has stacked multiple installment plans, each with overlapping due dates. Suddenly, his bank account is being hit by a constant stream of withdrawals, $10 here, $30 there, $50 again and again. What once felt like freedom now feels like a trap. And David isn't alone. Studies suggest that more than half of BNPL users admit to overspending compared to when they use cash or debit. Around a third have missed at least one payment, triggering late fees that pile on top of the original debt. For people already living paycheck to paycheck, this is a dangerous spiral. The same tool that promises financial flexibility ends up creating new financial stress. And unlike credit cards, which have decades of regulation and consumer protections behind them, BNPL operates in a grey area with far less oversight. The companies running these services know exactly what they're doing. Their sleek apps are designed to keep customers engaged, encouraging them to borrow for everything from sneakers to concert tickets. They highlight how easy it is to split payments, they celebrate spending with cheerful notifications, and they downplay the risks. Behind the friendly colors and smooth marketing, their business model depends on volume. The more often you use it, the more likely you are to slip up, miss a payment, and start paying fees. In other words, they don't just make money when you borrow responsibly. They make money when you stumble. For the average consumer, the problem isn't one big purchase, it's the slow accumulation of small ones. And that's where BNPL hits the hardest. It normalizes debt as part of everyday life. You're no longer just borrowing for a car, a house, or even a vacation. Now you're borrowing for groceries, for gas, for dinner, when the basics of daily living are financed through installment plans. It signals something deeper about the state of the economy. It shows that wages aren't stretching far enough, that traditional credit is out of reach for many, and that millions are surviving day to day by borrowing against tomorrow. The deeper you look, the more buy now, pay later reveals itself not as a tool of financial empowerment, but as a symptom of a much bigger problem. Americans are turning to it because traditional options, credit cards, personal loans, even savings accounts are either maxed out or simply unavailable. Credit card debt in the US has now passed $1 trillion, the highest level in history. At the same time, interest rates are climbing, making every swipe of the card more expensive than ever before. For many households, BNPL looks like the safer alternative. No visible interest rates, no looming mountain of debt, just smaller pieces of a bigger bill. But in reality, it's often a shell game, shifting debt around without addressing the underlying issue. What's worse, BNPL often disguises the true cost of living. Take groceries, for example. When families start financing food through installment plans, it's not just about budgeting, convenience, it's a red flag. It means income isn't keeping up with essential expenses. Surveys show that younger generations, particularly millennials and Gen Z, are using BNPL not just for luxuries but for daily necessities. That signals a deeper economic squeeze, where even the basics are slipping out of reach without borrowed money. Psychologists warn that the structure of BNPL taps into behavioral blind spots. Humans are naturally wired to downplay future consequences compared to present relief. When faced with a choice between paying $100 now or $25 today and $25 later, the brain chooses the option that feels lighter in the moment, even though the end result is the same. Multiply that decision across dozens of transactions, and people end up in financial positions they never intended to reach. It's not about irresponsibility, it's about design. The system is engineered to make spending feel painless and borrowing feel harmless, while the risks accumulate quietly in the background. The real danger comes when payments overlap. A single purchase split into 4 installments doesn't look threatening. But stack multiple purchases across multiple platforms, and suddenly a person is juggling obligations to Affirm, Klarna Afterpay, and PayPal credit all at once. Each one has its own schedule, its own due dates, and missing even one payment can trigger fees that snowball quickly. And because these services often draw funds directly from checking accounts, missed payments can lead to overdraft charges, creating a second layer of financial pain. McDonald's has never been just another fast food chain. For decades, it has been one of the most visible and powerful cultural symbols of America's global reach. The golden arches became so familiar across the world that for many people, spotting one was like seeing a piece of the United States transplanted into their own neighborhood. For some, it represented convenience, modernity, and prosperity. For others, it was a sign of cultural dominance. A reminder that globalization was as much about hamburgers and fries as it was about politics and trade. But as time passes, the glow of those arches has begun to fade, especially in Asia, where McDonald's once thrived but now struggles to hold the same appeal. This shift is not just about food, it's about identity, economics, and the shifting balance of cultural influence across the globe. When McDonald's first arrived in Asia, it brought with it an image of the West that many consumers found irresistible. In the 1980s and 1990s, walking into a McDonald's in cities like Beijing, Mumbai, or Jakarta felt like stepping into another world. It was air-conditioned, brightly lit, and standardized down to the smallest detail. The food looked and tasted exactly like it did in New York or Los Angeles, which was part of the magic for families who had only seen America on television. The experience of eating a Big Mac was as close as they might come to touching the American dream. Parents brought their children to celebrate birthdays, their teenagers hung out after school, and office workers saw it as a modern alternative to traditional food stalls. But the same sameness that once made McDonald's so appealing has now become one of its greatest weaknesses. Younger generations across Asia are no longer dazzled by the idea of an imported Western brand. Instead, they are proud of their own cultures, traditions, and cuisines. A burger that tastes the same in New Delhi and New York doesn't feel like an adventure anymore, it feels generic. In India, you'll see young people flocking to homegrown fast food chains that serve spicy momos, rich curries, or flavorful chots that carry cultural meaning as well as taste. In China, local brands such as Daikos have learned to adapt quickly, offering fried chicken and localized flavors that resonate more with consumers than the uniform menu of McDonald's. Economics plays a huge role in this shift as well. McDonald's was once seen as a cheap and quick way to eat, but in many Asian countries today, it's no longer affordable for the average family. A full meal for four at McDonald's in Manila, Jakarta, or Beijing can cost significantly more than eating at a local food stall or even a sit-down restaurant that serves traditional dishes. What was once a symbol of affordability is now perceived as a luxury. For working-class families, that change matters. Why spend extra money on fries and burgers when they can enjoy a hearty local meal at half the price? That economic reality chips away at the appeal McDonald's once had, and in economies where middle-class growth is slowing or inflation is rising, price perception becomes one of the strongest deciding factors. Cultural pride also fuels this transformation. When McDonald's entered India, it famously altered its menu to exclude beef, recognizing the religious and cultural importance of that decision. The company introduced chicken and vegetarian options, and items like the Macaloo Tiki Burger became instant hits. But even those adaptations couldn't fully shake the perception that McDonald's was foreign. Meanwhile, local chains tapped into a sense of authenticity that McDonald's couldn't match. Ordering a spicy paneer wrap or a plate of samosas didn't just satisfy hunger, it reinforced cultural pride. Over time, customers began to see McDonald's less as a special experience and more as an unnecessary foreign alternative. In China, the dynamics are even more politically charged. In the early 1990s, when the first McDonald's opened in Beijing, it was greeted with enthusiasm. Crowds lined up for hours to try what they saw as a symbol of progress and modernization. Parents saved money to treat their children to this new and exciting experience. But fast forward to today, and nationalism has reshaped the story. Rising tensions between the United States and China have fueled campaigns on social media that encourage consumers to reject foreign brands and support domestic companies. Suddenly, eating at McDonald's isn't just about taste, it's about making a political choice. A teenager who opts for local fried chicken over a Big Mac is in a small way signaling loyalty to their culture and country. This political dimension cannot be ignored. For the United States, McDonald's has long been a tool of soft power. Its global presence symbolized not only American food, but American culture and values. When people lined up outside the first McDonald's in Moscow after the fall of the Soviet Union, it was seen as proof that America's cultural influence had triumphed. But when that same brand is now rejected in Asia, it signals a weakening of that influence. Soft power isn't about military strength. It's about appeal, about the ability to shape what others desire. If McDonald's is no longer desirable, then America's cultural reach loses some of its potency. The ripple effects extend back to the United States in ways that aren't always obvious. McDonald's is one of the largest purchasers of agricultural products in the country. It buys enormous quantities of beef, chicken, potatoes, and dairy. American farmers, ranchers, and suppliers are tied into the McDonald's ecosystem in ways that go far beyond what most consumers realize. When sales decline in Asia, demand for these products falls. A farmer in Idaho who grows potatoes for French fries, a rancher in Texas who raises cattle for beef, or a dairy farmer in Wisconsin who produces milk, all of them feel the impact when fewer burgers and shakes are sold abroad. What looks like a cultural choice in Asia can end up as an economic hardship in America. Even investors in the United States are not immune. McDonald's stock is a staple of retirement funds and portfolios. Millions of Americans indirectly depend on its success to secure their financial futures. If the company struggles overseas, its profits shrink, dividends decrease, and stock prices may drop. Suddenly, a consumer in Beijing choosing dumplings over a Big Mac affects a retiree in Florida who never set foot in China. This is globalization in action, interconnected, invisible, and powerful. And while McDonald's is the most visible symbol of this trend, it isn't alone. Other American cultural exports, Starbucks, Coca-Cola. Hollywood movies, similar challenges. Global brands thrive when they represent modernity and aspiration. But when local pride grows, when affordability shifts, and when political tensions rise, those same brands can quickly lose their luster. McDonald's may simply be the first domino to fall in a wider cultural realignment. When we look at Asia today, one of the most striking realities is how rapidly consumer tastes are evolving. The younger generation, especially those born after the year 2000, see the world very differently from their parents. For their parents, eating at McDonald's was once a novelty, a way of connecting to something modern and international. It felt like stepping into the future. But for today's youth in Asia, McDonald's is often viewed as old-fashioned, predictable, and even uninspiring. They are growing up in a digital age where variety is endless, where food delivery apps give them access to thousands of options at the touch of a button. In this new landscape, the appeal of a menu that hasn't changed much in decades feels limited. McDonald's has become familiar, but familiarity does not always breed loyalty. Sometimes it breeds boredom. And in a world where attention spans are shrinking and trends come and go faster than ever, boredom is deadly for any brand. One of the biggest factors driving this shift is the rise of local innovation. In Asia, entrepreneurs are creating fast food brands that are not only cheaper than McDonald's, but also more creative. Take Indonesia, for example. Brands like Es Teller 77 and Ayam Geprek Bensu serve food rooted in Indonesian traditions. From spicy fried chicken to rice bowls infused with local flavors. These meals are not just delicious, but deeply cultural, reflecting a sense of identity that McDonald's struggles to match. In South Korea, fried chicken chains such as BHC and Kyochen dominate the fast food scene, offering flavors like soy, garlic, and spicy chili that feel distinctly Korean. For young consumers, eating at these places isn't just about filling their stomachs. It's about expressing pride in their culture. Why settle for a bland cheeseburger when you can enjoy flavors that connect to your heritage? This question sits at the heart of McDonald's problem in Asia. Technology has amplified these challenges. Delivery apps like Grab, Zomato, Food Panda, and Meituan have transformed how people eat. In the past, McDonald's had the advantage of convenience. It was the go-to option for a quick, reliable meal. But today, convenience has been redefined. It no longer means driving to a restaurant or standing in line. It means scrolling through a phone and having food delivered directly to your doorstep. This levels the playing field between McDonald's and its competitors. A local vendor selling spicy noodles can now compete head-to-head with McDonald's because both are just a click away. In fact, local vendors often have an edge because they can adjust their menus quickly, experiment with new dishes, and cater to regional preferences in ways McDonald's cannot. The very efficiency and standardization that once made McDonald's powerful are now liabilities in a world where consumers crave constant novelty and personalization. Affordability is another key point worth expanding on. McDonald's markets itself as an affordable choice, but in much of Asia, the numbers tell a different story. In the United States, the cost of a Big Mac is roughly equivalent to the average hourly wage. In many Asian countries, however, that same Big Mac can cost half a day's wages for low-income workers. This makes McDonald's less of an everyday option and more of an occasional treat. Meanwhile, local food options, whether from street vendors, family-owned restaurants, or newer fast food chains often provide more food at a lower price. For working-class families, the decision is simple. Why pay more for food that doesn't even reflect your own culture when you can eat well, spend less, and feel connected to your roots? Over time, this simple economic choice erodes McDonald's ability to attract repeat customers. But there's another dimension to this story: health. Across Asia, awareness of nutrition and lifestyle diseases has grown dramatically. Rates of diabetes, obesity, and heart disease are rising in many countries, and governments are increasingly vocal about the dangers of unhealthy eating habits. Public health campaigns often highlight Western fast food as a culprit, placing McDonald's at the center of the conversation. For middle-class parents in Asia, taking their children to McDonald's too often can carry a stigma, as though they are feeding their kids something harmful. This creates a generational effect. Children who grow up hearing their parents criticize McDonald's are less likely to develop a positive relationship with the brand. In contrast, local food chains often frame themselves as healthier alternatives, even if they are not always much healthier in reality. The perception matters more than the facts, and in the battle of perception, McDonald's often loses. Politics also plays a role in the decline. In countries like China, where tensions with the United States are high, American brands are vulnerable to boycotts, social media campaigns, and shifting public sentiment. When disputes arise over trade, technology, or geopolitics, companies like McDonald's can become collateral damage. Consumers who might otherwise enjoy a burger suddenly decide to eat elsewhere as a form of quiet protest. This dynamic is not limited to China. Across Asia, there is a growing sense of pride in local identity and suspicion of foreign dominance. While McDonald's may not be directly responsible for political tensions, it becomes a symbol of them, and symbols are powerful. Every time a customer chooses a local brand over McDonald's, it's not just a business decision, it can also be an act of cultural or political expression. At the same time, McDonald's finds itself struggling with brand fatigue. The golden arches are everywhere, but ubiquity doesn't always translate into excitement. The more common something becomes, the less special it feels. In the 1980s and 1990s, visiting McDonald's was a unique experience in many Asian cities. Today, it's just another option among many, and often not the most attractive one. Younger generations, shaped by social media, crave experiences that feel shareable, unique, and exciting. A plate of sushi donuts in Tokyo or a colorful boba tea in Taipei makes for a far better Instagram post than a plain cheeseburger. This shift toward food as an experience has left McDonald's scrambling to adapt, but its very identity as a standardized, predictable brand works against it. When your entire model is built on being the same everywhere, it's very hard to also be exciting and different. All of this leads to a critical question. Can McDonald's reinvent itself in Asia? The company has tried introducing region-specific items, redesigning stores, and experimenting with digital ordering. In some places, these efforts have worked temporarily, sparking renewed interest. But the deeper challenges cultural pride, political tension, affordability gaps, and the craving for novelty are not so easy to solve. McDonald's faces a fundamental identity crisis. Should it double down on its American roots, embracing its identity as a global brand, or should it attempt to blend in more deeply with local cultures, even at the risk of losing the very qualities that made it iconic? Neither path is easy, and neither guarantees success. What is clear is that the decline of McDonald's in Asia is not just about burgers and fries. It reflects broader shifts in how people see themselves, their cultures, and their place in a globalized world. It reveals tensions between tradition and modernity, between local pride and global influence, between affordability and aspiration, and it suggests that the future of global brands may be far more fragile than many assume. For decades, McDonald's seemed invincible, a golden giant spreading across the globe without resistance. Today, in the bustling cities of Asia, cracks are appearing in that golden armor, and what we are witnessing may be the early signs of a much larger transformation in the balance of cultural and economic power. One of the most fascinating aspects of McDonald's decline in Asia is the way consumer psychology has shifted. When McDonald's first opened in countries like China, Japan, or India, it wasn't just a restaurant, it was an experience. Eating at McDonald's was seen as aspirational, a sign that you were participating in modern life. For families in emerging economies, bringing children to McDonald's was sometimes treated as a special occasion, even a status symbol. It meant you could afford not only a Western meal, but also the modern, global lifestyle it represented. But that psychology has completely changed. In 2025, dining at McDonald's no longer carries the same symbolic weight. In fact, in some countries it is seen as the opposite, a cheap, uninspired choice, something to settle for when you don't have better options. This shift in perception is one of the most powerful drivers of McDonald's decline. Younger generations are at the center of this transformation. In cities like Seoul, Jakarta, and Shanghai, Gen Z and millennials are shaping the future of consumption. These are generations raised in a digital world, surrounded by endless options, constant innovation, and exposure to global culture through smartphones and streaming platforms. They are not impressed by a burger and fries because they can scroll through Instagram or TikTok and see thousands of unique food experiences every day. For them, food is not just about taste, it's about identity, aesthetics, and storytelling. Posting a photo of a McDonald's burger doesn't feel exciting, but sharing a picture of artisanal bubble tea, sushi burritos, or a local food stall with a creative twist does. Food has become a form of social currency, and McDonald's simply doesn't fit that narrative anymore. This decline also connects with a deeper economic reality, the rising cost of living across Asia. In major urban centers, from Hong Kong to Singapore, the average consumer is more price conscious than ever. While McDonald's was once considered affordable, today its meals are often priced at levels that compete with local restaurants offering fresher or more culturally relevant food. For example, in parts of Southeast Asia, you can buy a full plate of local rice dishes or noodle soup for less than the cost of a McDonald's combo meal. That's a powerful disadvantage. As wages stagnate and inflation raises the cost of essentials, people are calculating every purchase carefully. If they're going to spend more, they want better value, either healthier food, larger portions, or a meal that feels authentic. McDonald's struggles to meet that standard, and its attempts to localize menus often fall short when compared to local competitors who understand cultural tastes at a deeper level. It's also important to note how much the concept of convenience has changed. In the early years, McDonald's thrived because it offered fast, reliable food at a time when many local restaurants couldn't match that speed. But the digital revolution changed everything. Food delivery apps have completely redefined convenience. In cities like Beijing, Jakarta, and Manila, ordering food is as easy as tapping your phone screen, with meals arriving at your door in under 30 minutes. And you don't just get one option, you get thousands. From small mom-and-pop kitchens to trendy startups, all competing for your attention. Against that backdrop, McDonald's no longer has a monopoly on convenience. Delivery platforms turned the local food landscape into an open marketplace where McDonald's is just one choice among countless others, and often not the most attractive one. The weakening of McDonald's in Asia also reveals something about how global supply chains are being restructured. For decades, McDonald's was a symbol of globalization, sourcing ingredients from across the world and distributing them through highly organized networks. That system worked when global trade was expanding and US companies were at the center of economic growth. But today, supply chains are fragmenting. Countries are focusing more on regional trade, local farming, and political tensions and logistical challenges, from tariffs to shipping costs, are making global supply chains more expensive and more fragile. As a result, McDonald's reliance on standardized ingredients and international logistics sometimes makes it less adaptable than local competitors who can source directly from nearby farms or adapt quickly to food shortages and price changes. What makes this especially interesting is that McDonald's decline is not just an economic issue, it's also a cultural one. Food is one of the most powerful carriers of culture. Every dish tells a story about a country's history, geography, and identity. In Asia, where culinary traditions run deep, food is not just about eating, it's about heritage and community. McDonald's, with its standardized burgers and fries, often feels disconnected from that story. Yes, the company tries to adapt, offering items like rice bowls in China or samosas in India, but these attempts are sometimes seen as superficial. They lack the authenticity of dishes that have been perfected over centuries. Consumers are quick to recognize the difference between something created in a corporate boardroom and something rooted in tradition. That authenticity gap is one of the reasons local food chains thrive, while McDonald's struggles. On a symbolic level, McDonald's decline is a story about shifting power. For much of the 20th century, American brands defined global culture. From Hollywood films to Coca-Cola ads, the world consumed American culture with little resistance. But now, the cultural exchange flows both ways. South Korea exports K-pop and K-dramas. Japan influences global gaming and anime. India dominates the IT and film industries. And even local Asian food chains like Jollibee or Din Tai Fung have expanded internationally, winning loyal customers outside their home markets. This is no longer a one-way street of cultural influence. The decline of McDonald's in Asia symbolizes the decline of unquestioned American cultural dominance. Economically, the ripple effects of McDonald's decline reach far beyond Asia. As sales drop in one region, the entire global chain feels the impact. US farmers who supply beef, potatoes, and other ingredients face reduced demand. Franchise owners in Asia struggle to maintain profitability, leading to closures that affect local employees. Shipping companies and logistics providers lose contracts. Investors begin to question the stability of McDonald's long-term growth. These ripple effects matter because McDonald's is not just another fast food company, it's one of the largest restaurant chains in the world, and its health often reflects the health of global consumer markets. A decline in Asia signals vulnerabilities in the broader global economy, particularly in how Western companies compete in increasingly self-confident local markets. At its core, this entire shift highlights a clash between globalization and localization. Globalization once promised uniformity, the idea that no matter where you went, you could walk into a McDonald's and know exactly what to expect. But localization has proven to be a stronger force in many markets. Consumers want food that feels relevant to their own identity, not just a copy-paste from another culture. McDonald's attempts to balance these two forces often leave it stuck in the middle, to global, to feel local, but not global enough to feel exciting. It's a paradox that has no easy solution, and it raises serious questions about the future of not just McDonald's, but all Western brands trying to maintain dominance in Asia. Ultimately, McDonald's decline in Asia is a lesson in adaptability or the lack of it. Companies that fail to adapt to cultural, economic, and technological shifts will inevitably lose ground. The Golden Arches once represented the height of global success, but today they are a reminder that no empire, corporate or cultural, lasts forever. The world is changing, and in Asia, consumers are leading that change with their choices, their wallets, and their voices. McDonald's may remain a giant in many parts of the world, but its struggles in Asia are a warning sign. The balance of cultural and economic power is shifting, and the West is no longer the center of gravity. When we talk about McDonald's in Asia, we are not just talking about a restaurant chain. We are talking about a symbol that once represented the reach of American influence. The Golden Arches were a shorthand for modernity, for globalization, for the promise of a connected world under the banner of American capitalism. In the 1990s and early 2000s, this message carried enormous weight. For many, visiting McDonald's felt like participating in a piece of America itself, an aspirational act, a small window into a different lifestyle. But the reality of 2025 is far more complex. That same symbol no longer inspires admiration in many Asian markets. Instead, it sparks indifference or even quiet resistance. This tells us something profound. Cultural power is not static, and the center of gravity is shifting. The erosion of McDonald's dominance reflects the erosion of what some call soft power. The ability of a country to influence others through culture, values, and ideas rather than military or economic force. For decades, the United States wielded enormous soft power through its brands, movies, music, and technology. When a McDonald's opened in Moscow in 1990, the world saw it as a triumph of American culture, a sign that, even behind the Iron Curtain, people wanted a taste of the American dream. Fast forward to today, and that dream no longer has the same allure. In Asia, younger generations are not looking to America for validation or inspiration in the way previous generations did. They are confident in their own cultures, their own traditions, and their own brands. This change is particularly visible in the rise of Asia's homegrown food giants. Consider Jollibee, the Filipino fast food chain that has become a global player. Jollibee's menu is unapologetically Filipino, featuring dishes like sweet-style spaghetti, crispy fried chicken, and halo desserts. Yet this hasn't limited its appeal. On the contrary, its authenticity has made it a powerful cultural export, allowing it to thrive not only in the Philippines, but also in the Middle East, the United States, and even parts of Europe. Jollibee demonstrates that a brand rooted in local identity can win on the global stage. The same story can be told with Din Tai Fung, the Taiwanese restaurant chain famous for its soup dumplings. What started as a small family-owned shop has become an international sensation, with branches across Asia, the United States, and beyond. Din Tai Fung doesn't need to mimic Western food trends to succeed. Instead, it leans into its heritage, its craftsmanship, and the cultural story of Taiwanese cuisine. This formula resonates with global audiences who are hungry for authenticity rather than uniformity. In Japan, chains like Emo's Burger highlight how local innovation can outmaneuver global giants. Moe's Burger offers rice burgers, teriyaki flavors, and seasonal items that connect deeply with Japanese culinary traditions. The chain doesn't shy away from experimenting, constantly refreshing its menu while staying grounded in local culture. Compare this with McDonald's, whose attempts at localization often feel like a corporate afterthought, adding a regional sauce here, a seasonal item there, without fully integrating into the culinary fabric of the society. These examples show that the tide has turned. Where McDonald's once symbolized modernity, local chains now symbolize authenticity, creativity, and cultural pride. For many Asian consumers, supporting these local brands is not only a matter of taste, but also a statement of identity. Eating at Jollibee or Din Tai Fung can feel like supporting your culture, while eating at McDonald's may feel like settling for something generic and foreign. This is a fundamental challenge for McDonald's, and one that money alone cannot solve. Economic factors add another layer to this story. In many Asian markets, income inequality has grown sharply in recent years. While some enjoy rising affluence, many struggle with stagnating wages and rising living costs. This makes price a critical factor in dining decisions. McDonald's, which once positioned itself as an affordable option, is increasingly viewed as overpriced. In countries like India, a McDonald's meal can cost significantly more than a filling meal at a local restaurant. In Southeast Asia, the situation is similar. Inflation has pushed fast food prices higher, eroding one of McDonald's key advantages. Local competitors, meanwhile, often keep their prices lower while delivering a product that feels more satisfying and culturally resonant. Technology is amplifying these trends. Food delivery platforms not only make local options more accessible, but also highlight them through promotions, discounts, and targeted advertising. In China, apps like Meituan and Me frequently feature local restaurants with special offers, drawing customers away from standardized global chains. The algorithm-driven economy rewards variety and novelty, not uniformity. As a result, McDonald's, with its limited menu and higher prices, is at a disadvantage in a system that thrives on diversity and constant change. This dynamic is part of a broader shift in globalization itself. The world is no longer as eager to embrace a single, homogenized culture. Instead, we are entering an era of globalization where global brands must adapt deeply to local contexts or risk being left behind. But adaptation is not easy for McDonald's, whose identity is built on consistency. Too much localization, and the brand risks losing its distinctiveness. Too little, and it remains irrelevant. It's a delicate balance, and one McDonald's has struggled to manage. The implications for the United States are significant. McDonald's is not just a fast food chain, it's a cultural ambassador. Its decline in Asia signals a decline in the ability of American culture to shape global tastes and aspirations. This is happening alongside similar challenges in other industries. Hollywood movies, once dominant worldwide, are losing ground to Korean dramas, Japanese anime, and Bollywood blockbusters. American tech companies face growing competition from Chinese, Indian, and Southeast Asian firms. The shift in consumer culture is part of a larger rebalancing of global influence, with Asia asserting itself not as a passive consumer of Western products, but as an active creator of global culture. In some ways, McDonald's struggles are symbolic of America's broader challenges in the 21st century. The country remains powerful, but its dominance is no longer unchallenged. The rise of multipolar cultural and economic power centers means that success in the global market can no longer be taken for granted. For American companies, winning in Asia requires more than replicating a formula that worked at home. It requires humility, adaptability, and a willingness to truly understand the local context. Without these qualities, even the most iconic brands will falter. At the same time, McDonald's decline is not necessarily permanent. The company has reinvented itself before and could do so again. Its ability to innovate in digital ordering, sustainability, and menu diversification will determine whether it regains ground in Asia or continues to fade. But the larger lesson remains clear. The age of Western cultural dominance through standardized brands is over. The future belongs to those who can balance global reach with local authenticity, who can respect cultural traditions while offering something new. The Golden Arches once shone as a beacon of American modernity. Today, in Asia, they are dimming, overshadowed by local lights that shine brighter in the eyes of consumers. This transformation is more than a business story, it's a cultural and geopolitical shift, one that reveals the changing dynamics of power in our interconnected world. McDonald's may continue to serve millions of burgers each day, but its struggles in Asia remind us that even the most powerful symbols of globalization are not immune to change. For decades, McDonald's marketed itself as the face of convenience and consistency. No matter where you were in the world, walking into a McDonald's meant you could expect the same Big Mac, the same fries, the same Coke. For many, that uniformity was comforting. But as consumer psychology evolves, especially in Asia, that sameness has become a liability rather than an advantage. Younger generations, raised in an environment of digital choice, are not interested in predictability. They are drawn to novelty, diversity, and experiences that feel unique to them. The culture of everything on demand means that food is no longer just about filling your stomach. It's about telling a story, sharing on social media, and connecting with a sense of identity. In this new world, McDonald's formula of sameness is starting to feel outdated, even boring. This generational shift is happening at the same time as a global health awakening. Across Asia, concerns about diet-related diseases are growing. Rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease have led governments, health organizations, and schools to campaign more aggressively for healthier eating habits. Fast food, with its reputation for high fat, salt, and sugar content, is often singled out as a culprit. While McDonald's has tried to respond adding salads, offering grilled options, and even marketing smaller portion sizes, the perception remains that it is unhealthy. And perception, especially in the digital age, often matters more than reality. In contrast, many Asian cuisines are celebrated for their emphasis on fresh ingredients, vegetables, rice, fish, and balanced flavors. When local fast food chains adapt these traditional elements into modern, affordable meals, they offer consumers something McDonald's struggles to match: the convenience of fast food without the guilt of abandoning cultural and nutritional norms. For example, in Vietnam, chains that serve rice dishes with grilled meats and pickled vegetables thrive because they align with the daily eating patterns of ordinary people. In India, vegetarian fast food chains that highlight spices, legumes, and breads resonate far more than burgers or fries ever could. This growing health consciousness is also tied to another powerful force: environmental awareness. Across Asia, but especially among Gen Z and millennials, there is rising concern about sustainability. Consumers are asking tough questions. Where does my food come from? How much waste does it create? What impact does this have on the planet? McDonald's, as a global giant, has faced relentless criticism on these fronts. Its use of plastic packaging, its contribution to deforestation through beef production, and its reliance on industrial supply chains all clash with the values of environmentally aware consumers. While the company has made pledges to become more sustainable, committing to renewable energy, reducing waste, and sourcing responsibly, these promises are often seen as too little, too late, or simply corporate greenwashing. Meanwhile, smaller local chains often have an advantage here by sourcing locally, using traditional packaging, or offering plant-based menu items rooted in cultural traditions. They position themselves as more authentic and environmentally responsible. For instance, in parts of Indonesia and Malaysia, fast food outlets serving tempeh or tofu-based dishes are growing in popularity, not only because they are affordable and healthy, but also because they are seen as sustainable. This cultural alignment with environmental and health values creates a powerful brand loyalty that McDonald's cannot easily replicate. But perhaps the most striking shift is not just in what people are eating, but in what they are rejecting. Across Asia, consumers are increasingly rejecting the idea that Western products are automatically superior. For much of the late 20th century, there was a belief that American or European brands carried prestige. Owning a pair of Nike shoes, carrying a Starbucks cup, or eating at McDonald's was a subtle way of signaling modernity and status. Today, that status symbol has faded. If anything, flaunting Western brands sometimes carries the opposite message, that you are out of touch with your own culture, or that you are consuming a product that is seen as mass-produced and impersonal. This is part of a larger unraveling of the Western-centric global order. As Asian economies rise, so does cultural confidence. China, India, South Korea, and other nations are exporting their own food, fashion, and entertainment industries with enormous success. Korean pop culture, in particular, has become a global phenomenon, influencing everything from music to skincare to food. The Korean fried chicken craze is a perfect example of how local cuisine can become globally dominant. 10 years ago, few outside Asia had even heard of it. Today, Korean fried chicken chains are expanding across the United States, Europe, and the Middle East, often at the expense of older Western chains like McDonald's or KFC. This cultural reversal raises a profound question. If American fast food is struggling to maintain relevance in Asia, what does that say about the future of global capitalism? For decades, globalization was equated with Americanization. The world was expected to adopt not only American products, but also American values and lifestyles. But the failure of McDonald's to dominate in Asia reveals that globalization is now a two-way street. Instead of the world becoming more like America, America may increasingly find itself adapting to global cultural flows. This does not mean McDonald's S will disappear. It remains one of the largest restaurant chains in the world, but its role as a cultural leader is slipping. The story of McDonald's in Asia also forces us to rethink the idea of scale. For much of modern business history, bigger was considered better. A company like McDonald's could leverage its massive supply chain, global advertising budget, and standardized processes to crush local competitors. Yet, in the digital age, scale can be a disadvantage. Being big means being slow to adapt, burdened by bureaucracy, and constantly scrutinized by regulators and activists. Being big also means being generic and able to deliver the personal, local, or authentic experiences consumers now crave. Smaller, nimbler companies can move faster, experiment more, and connect with customers on an emotional level. In Asia, this agility has proven decisive. At the same time, McDonald's decline highlights an important contradiction within capitalism itself. The very system that allowed the brand to conquer the world, free trade, mass production, global supply chains, is now empowering its competitors. Asian companies learned from McDonald's playbook, but they also improved on it, embedding cultural authenticity, digital innovation, and local adaptability into their models. In doing so, they have created businesses that can rival or even surpass the American giant. The student, in many ways, has outgrown the teacher. Looking forward, the big question is whether McDonald's can reinvent itself for this new era. Reinvention would mean more than just tweaking menus or launching marketing campaigns. It would require rethinking what the brand represents. Can McDonald's become a champion of sustainability rather than a symbol of waste? Can it deliver meals that truly reflect local food cultures rather than watered-down imitations? Can it shed its image as a corporate giant and connect with consumers on a human level? These are enormous challenges, but they are also opportunities. Because if McDonald's fails, the consequences go beyond one company. They signal a broader truth that the future of global business belongs to those who can balance scale with authenticity, efficiency with sustainability, and globalization with cultural respect. Asia's rise is rewriting the rules of the game, and companies that do not adjust will inevitably fall behind. McDonald's, once the world's most powerful symbol of modernity, now stands at a crossroads. Its story is not only about burgers and fries, it is about the transformation of the global economy, the end of one era and the uncertain beginning of another. For decades, McDonald's marketed itself as the face of convenience and consistency. No matter where you were in the world, walking into a McDonald's meant you could expect the same Big Mac, the same fries, the same Coke. For many, that uniformity was comforting. But as consumer psychology evolves, especially in Asia, that sameness has become a liability rather than an advantage. Younger generations, raised in an environment of digital choice, are not interested in predictability. They are drawn to novelty, diversity, and experiences that feel unique to them. The culture of everything on demand means that food is no longer just about filling your stomach. It's about telling a story, sharing on social media, and connecting with a sense of identity. In this new world, McDonald's formula of sameness is starting to feel outdated, even boring. This generational shift is happening at the same time as a global health awakening. Across Asia, concerns about diet-related diseases are growing. Rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease have led governments, health organizations, and schools to campaign more aggressively for healthier eating habits. Fast food, with its reputation for high fat, salt, and sugar content, is often singled out as a culprit. While McDonald's has tried to respond adding salads, offering grilled options, and even marketing smaller portion sizes, the perception remains that it is unhealthy. And perception, especially in the digital age, often matters more than reality. In contrast, many Asian cuisines are celebrated for their emphasis on fresh ingredients. Vegetables, rice, fish, and balanced flavors. When local fast food chains adapt these traditional elements into modern affordable meals, they offer consumers something McDonald's struggles to match. The convenience of fast food without the guilt of abandoning cultural and nutritional norms. For example, in Vietnam, chains that serve rice dishes with grilled meats and pickled vegetables thrive because they align with the daily eating patterns of ordinary people. In India, vegetarian fast food chains that highlight spices, legumes, and breads resonate far more than burgers or fries ever could. This growing health consciousness is also tied to another powerful force: environmental awareness. Across Asia, but especially among Gen Z and millennials, there is rising concern about sustainability. Consumers are asking tough questions. Where does my food come from? How much waste does it create? What impact does this have on the planet? McDonald's, as a global giant, has faced relentless criticism on these fronts. Its use of plastic packaging, its contribution to deforestation through beef production, and its reliance on industrial supply chains all clash with the values of environmentally aware consumers. While the company has made pledges to become more sustainable, committing to renewable energy, reducing waste, and sourcing responsibly, these promises are often seen as too little, too late, or simply corporate greenwashing. Meanwhile, smaller local chains often have an advantage here. By sourcing locally, using traditional packaging, or offering plant-based menu items rooted in cultural traditions. They position themselves as more authentic and environmentally responsible. For instance, in parts of Indonesia and Malaysia, fast food outlets serving tempeh or tofu-based dishes are growing in popularity, not only because they are affordable and healthy, but also because they are seen as sustainable. This cultural alignment with environmental and health values creates a powerful brand loyalty that McDonald's cannot easily replicate. But perhaps the most striking shift is not just in what people are eating, but in what they are rejecting. Across Asia, consumers are increasingly rejecting the idea that Western products are automatically superior. For much of the late 20th century, there was a belief that American or European brands carried prestige. Owning a pair of Nike shoes, carrying a Starbucks cup, or eating at McDonald's was a subtle way of signaling modernity and status. Today, that status symbol has faded. If anything, flaunting Western brands sometimes carries the opposite message, that you are out of touch with your own culture, or that you are consuming a product that is seen as mass-produced and impersonal. This is part of a larger unraveling of the Western-centric global order. As Asian economies rise, so does cultural confidence. China, India, South Korea, and other nations are exporting their own food, fashion, and entertainment industries with enormous success. Korean pop culture, in particular, has become a global phenomenon, influencing everything from music to skincare to food. The Korean fried chicken craze is a perfect example of how local cuisine can become globally dominant. 10 years ago, few outside Asia had even heard of it. Today, Korean fried chicken chains are expanding across the United States, Europe, and the Middle East, often at the expense of older Western chains like McDonald's or This cultural reversal raises a profound question. If American fast food is struggling to maintain relevance in Asia, what does that say about the future of global capitalism? For decades, globalization was equated with Americanization. The world was expected to adopt not only American products, but also American values and lifestyles. But the failure of McDonald's to dominate in Asia reveals that globalization is now a two-way street. Instead of the world becoming more like America, America may increasingly find itself adapting to global cultural flows. This does not mean McDonald's will disappear. It remains one of the largest restaurant chains in the world, but its role as a cultural leader is slipping. The story of McDonald's in Asia also forces us to rethink the idea of scale. For much of modern business history, bigger was considered better. A company like McDonald's could leverage its massive supply chain, global advertising budget, and standardized processes to crush local competitors. Yet, in the digital age, scale can be a disadvantage. Being big means being slow to adapt, burdened by bureaucracy, and constantly scrutinized by regulators and activists. Being big also means being generic and able to deliver the personal, local, or authentic experiences consumers now crave. Smaller, nimbler companies can move faster, experiment more, and connect with customers on an emotional level. In Asia, this agility has proven decisive. At the same time, McDonald's decline highlights an important contradiction within capitalism itself. The very system that allowed the brand to conquer the world free trade, mass production, global supply chains is now empowering its competitors. Asian companies learned from McDonald's playbook, but they also improved on it, embedding cultural authenticity, digital innovation, and local adaptability into their models. In doing so, they have created businesses that can rival or even surpass the American giant. The student, in many ways, has outgrown the teacher. Looking forward, the big question is whether McDonald's can reinvent itself for this new era. Reinvention would mean more than just tweaking menus or launching marketing campaigns. It would require rethinking what the brand represents. Can McDonald's become a champion of sustainability rather than a symbol of waste? Can it deliver meals that truly reflect local food cultures rather than watered-down imitations? Can it shed its image as a corporate giant and connect with consumers on a human level? These are enormous challenges, but they are also opportunities. Because if McDonald's fails, the consequences go beyond one company. They signal a broader truth that the future of global business belongs to those who can balance scale with authenticity, efficiency with sustainability, and globalization with cultural respect. Asia's rise is rewriting the rules of the game, and companies that do not adjust will inevitably fall behind. McDonald's, once the world's most powerful symbol of modernity, now stands at a crossroads. Its story is not only about burgers and fries, it is about the transformation of the global economy, the end of one era and the uncertain beginning of another.